Alrighty, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Megan King, and I am a public health educator at the Washington Poison Center. I have the pleasure today of welcoming two special guests. We have Stephanie, who is a pharmacist at the Washington Poison Center, and Sarah, who is a deputy fire marshal and public educator at the Renton Regional Fire Authority. So, Stephanie and Sarah, can you introduce yourselves a little bit? Tell us what you do at your different organizations. Stephanie, let's start with you.
All right, so I'm one of the pharmacists at the Washington Poison Center, and I am the one answering the phone whenever you call. And so I speak with the public, I speak with first responders like our firefighter friends, and then also with the hospitals. So we're connected with all the different groups.
Thank you, Stephanie. Sarah?
I get the honor of going out into our Renton community and educating all sorts of different age groups from kindergarten to seniors, and I teach fire and life safety. And carbon monoxide is one of the topics that I discuss with community members often. So I'm glad to be here.
Wonderful. Thank you both for being here today. So before we get started, I just want to remind everyone to please ask us any questions that you have. You can type them into the comment box on whichever platform you're watching on YouTube or Facebook. We'll hopefully be able to get to those questions live, but if we aren't able to, then we will be sure to answer them after the stream ends. So as Sarah said earlier, today we are diving into staying safe at home with carbon monoxide. So Sarah, let's have you start us out. Can you tell us just what carbon monoxide is?
Sure. Carbon monoxide is a toxic, dangerous, invisible gas. It's often referred to as the silent killer because you can't smell it or see it. It builds up when fumes produced by fuel burning, cooking, or heating systems burn incompletely. So this could be propane, natural gas, a vehicle in your garage, a wood-burning appliance. It can be a very dangerous threat to our community members as well as our firefighters who are going to these calls. Because it cannot be seen and it has no odor, it's a very dangerous topic, and that's why we want to educate people on the dangers of it and how to stay safe.
Great. So why is a fire department talking about this? Why is it important to them?
It's important to us because during the winter months especially, as well as just other fire departments across the country, we see a larger uptick in carbon monoxide calls. A lot of times in the winter months, people are inside, they're using heat products to warm themselves, and oftentimes we get an uptick in that. And if we can prevent a carbon monoxide call from occurring in our community and educating somebody about it, that's a win for us for sure, as well as our community.
Awesome. Stephanie, what about you with the Poison Center? Why is it important to us?
Yeah, so at the Poison Center, we're able to help people figure out what's going on, if they need to be worried about carbon monoxide being a potential exposure, and then also decide whether it's something that they need to seek medical attention for and go into the hospital to be checked out, or whether they're in a situation that's safe to stay at home and there's not a risk there. So giving us a call can really help you decide which way you need to go.
Great, thank you. And I'll just add, since Sarah was talking about how in the winter months we're often seeing more, they're getting more calls about it. The Poison Center, we're very similar. And actually, I have some of our data from last year. We get a lot of calls about carbon monoxide. I think it's probably more than what you would expect. Last year at the Poison Center, we helped 368 people who came into contact with it. So it's a very common call for us to encounter. So Sarah, you started talking about this a little bit earlier. Can you walk us through what are some common sources of carbon monoxide in people's homes?
Sure. It can be anything from a gas water heater to a stove to a dryer, a gas-powered generator, leaving a vehicle running in your garage with the door closed, any non-fuel fired furnace. Those are just to name a few of the things that are common appliances in our house that we want to make sure that are properly functioning so that we don't have carbon monoxide in our homes.
So Stephanie, how can you even tell if if there's carbon monoxide in your home?
That's really one of the problems with it is you can't, by using any of your, 5 senses or however many senses you may have, you can't taste it, you can't smell it, you can't see it, you can't feel it. Like some airs feel cold or some airs may feel warm. It doesn't necessarily. And so there's really no way to sense that it could be in your environment. And that's why having a carbon monoxide alarm is so important, because that would be the way to alert you whether you have it in your home or not.
Great. So hold on to that thought, everyone, about alarms. We're going to get back to it in just a minute. But if you are starting to feel sick from carbon monoxide poisoning, what are some of those signs and symptoms?
Well, that's another problem with carbon monoxide is the signs and symptoms are pretty vague. I mean, they could be as run-of-the-mill as feeling just a little bit of a headache and run down and tired like you would from a normal day's work or if you're stressed. And so it's really hard to tease out. Some other symptoms that are pretty common are dizziness and nausea, which again are not really super descriptive. We do run into trouble whenever we get severe symptoms because it can cause heart attacks, chest pain, breathing issues, even up to seizures, passing out, and then there have been fatalities from carbon monoxide exposures.
So what is happening in the body to cause all of these symptoms?
All right, I'm going to get a little sciencey on you all. So what it does, so our red blood cells in our body, they transport oxygen to all different places, including the heart and the brain, so your tissues can use the oxygen. Well, carbon monoxide binds to those red blood cells more tightly than oxygen does. And so the oxygen isn't able to be transported about. And so things like your heart and brain aren't able to get the oxygen that they need to function. And so you end up having symptoms related to that because of the lack of oxygen there.
That was a great plain language way, basic explanation. Thank you. So are some people more at risk for carbon monoxide poisoning than others?
Unfortunately, yes. Those that are at higher risk are the very young or the very old. So whenever you have an extreme in age, if you have an underlying condition with your lungs or your heart or various other processes in the body that maybe aren't functioning quite adequately. And then pregnancy is a huge risk factor, not necessarily more so for mom, but for the baby. Babies need a lot more oxygen than, say, an adult, and they also bind that carbon monoxide more tightly than an adult does. So the effects are way more extreme for baby than they are for a normal adult.
Great. Thank you, Stephanie, for walking us through all of that. So Sarah, coming back to you now, what should people do if they think they've been exposed to carbon monoxide?
So if you do suspect carbon monoxide in your home, we want you to get out to fresh air immediately. Call from a cell phone outside or go to a neighbor's house, call from a nearby phone. We want you to stay outside until the fire department does arrive. Don't go back inside if you start to feel better. If you had a headache, wait until the fire department does arrive to evaluate, what's going on inside of your house.
So Stephanie, when would someone call the poison center then?
Whenever they have a question or suspect that there's symptoms could be related to carbon monoxide, whether they suspect that there could be carbon monoxide in the home, or even if they just have a question on what precautions to take and what to do next with their particular situation.
Great, thank you. So Sarah, someone calls the fire department about carbon monoxide. What happens then? What questions are you going to ask them? What should people expect?
Yeah, first, again, we want you to evacuate. Call 911, and then our fire department will arrive, and we have special air monitoring gas kind of technology where it can monitor all sorts of different gases, including carbon monoxide. Our crews, they want to be safe too, so we're going to definitely evaluate, what's going on inside. Once kind of deemed safe, we'll go in with our self-breathing apparatus, and we will kind of take some of the draw on a blank here, the readings inside as well as outside too. And once we get some of those readings, we'll kind of make a recommendation for the family if it's safe to go back inside. If not, we'll continue to take some tests and kind of just go from there.
Gotcha. So Stephanie, same questions to you. If someone calls the poison center, what are you going to ask them? What should they expect?
So the first thing I typically ask is, do you have a carbon monoxide tester in the home? And that's going to tease out a lot of things. And then going even further to ask about where that carbon monoxide detector is located versus where the family had been. And then if there's batteries in it, if they've checked the batteries, if they've kept them up to date, that's going to be the other thing to check, because it doesn't do any good to have a carbon monoxide detector without batteries. So, and then we go into more specific situations, like, do they have a carbon monoxide source that they know of, the specific thing they're worried about? Or are they just, it's more of a general, concern based on symptoms and situation? And then going into more the medical side, we'll ask, how long were they in the area or suspect the exposure had gone on? What symptoms are they having? Had they gotten into fresh air? And if not, we recommend that they do that as well. And then we'll start to ask about those specific risk factors with their medical history, age, pregnancy status, things like that.
And I'd like to add real quick to what Stephanie said. When we do get on scene as well, we'll ask the family or the business what kind of appliance that they maybe had running in the last 24 hours. We may turn it on again and kind of let it run to see if that may be the cause of what's going on. Of course, once everybody's out too.
Great. So Sarah, how can people prevent carbon monoxide poisoning?
Sure. This is kind of where the education piece for the community comes in, especially with the winter months. Our weather is getting stormy. We want generators to be operated outside and from a safe distance, making sure it's not coming in windows or doors that are, left open. Like Stephanie said, most importantly, installing carbon monoxide alarms in our home to have that first alert warning that something is occurring in our house. The vehicles, warming them up in the winter months. If they're in the garage, making sure that the door's open, so that emission can get out of the garage and it's not poisoning the family. Those are just a few of the tips to recommend.
Stephanie, do you have anything to add here?
I don't think I do at this time. Sarah went over it pretty well.
Great, thanks. Okay, so Sarah, I think you have a carbon monoxide alarm to show us. We'll let you take that away.
All right. So there are several types of carbon monoxide alarms that you can purchase, online or at your local hardware store. You can have them installed on the wall or the ceiling, like a smoke alarm, or you can even have some plugged in to an outlet with a battery backup. They can go on the floor or the ceiling. It really doesn't make any difference because carbon monoxide is neither heavier or lighter than air, unlike smoke that is pretty heavy. So just like a smoke alarm, carbon monoxide alarms need to be tested regularly too. The testing process is quite similar to a smoke alarm. So what you're going to do is you're going to press and hold down on the test button. So our test button's pretty large here. Let's see if it goes. Maybe I need to hold a little harder. Okay, and after a few seconds, you should hear 2 beeps, which signifies that the device has entered testing mode. So there's the one. Let's see. Okay, so that's indicating that it's testing. If you are unable to hear any source of the alarm or it's too weak, you should try replacing the batteries. If that doesn't work, then you probably should just replace the whole unit. They do only have about a lifespan of 7 to 10 years, so that's something to consider as well. They range from about $20 to $40 at the store or online, but so not very expensive, but a very important and valuable piece for your home. So that is what I have to share about testing them. You can test them monthly when you test your smoke alarms. And, when we're having the daylight savings coming up too, testing our smoke alarms, great reminder to, test this, make sure it's working as well. So
where should people put those?
great.
Locations in their home?
Yes, so you want to have it on every level of your home. So you can have them, unlike smoke alarms, you don't need them in the sleeping areas, but right outside of the sleeping areas in the hallways is a great place. And then downstairs, just in a central location is great too.
Great. So if people have any questions about carbon monoxide, who should they call?
Poison control or their local fire department. Most fire departments are happy to answer those questions. And
if they think they've been exposed, I would say the Poison Center is probably a first step, and then we can ask some questions and have them also get the fire department on board if needed.
Sure. Any general questions maybe regarding your alarm, we would have no problem answering those. But yeah, if you're having, problems, symptoms of whatnot, definitely call Stephanie over at the Poison Center.
Perfect. And that our phone number is right there on the screen, that 1-800-222-1222. That is a national toll-free number. So if you aren't located in Washington, not a problem. You can still call this phone number and you will be connected with your local Poison Center. I think that is all that we have for everyone today. I don't have any additional questions. I'm not seeing any comments come through. Do either of you have any final thoughts?
Not at this time.
All right. Well, thank you both so much for joining us here today. For all of you who are watching, please reach out with any questions. You can call the Poison Helpline. You can call your local fire department and comment with any questions you have, and we'll get to them later. All right, everyone. I'm going to end the stream now. Thank you.
Thank you.